Hey everyone, I have a bit of a depressing one for you all today, and it's not without good reason why I want to do one that's this depressing so soon after 4th of July, but I have my reasons that I will get to in a minute. It is The Road, and it's a relatively easy read. I mean, it just speaks very plainly. It's, just like kind of a journal of thoughts, activities, things they ate, things they did, things they saw. And it was a little bit watered down for the movie because some of it really is too much. We'll get to that in a minute too, but first, just the basic rundown. Obviously, the book reads pretty much the same. It flows the same as the movie flows, just very, very plainly, what you see is what you get. What the book does not have is all the flashbacks that the guy has of his life back when he still had a home and his wife was still alive, and this shit was starting to really hit the fan. And the last flashback is of her possibly committing suicide by hypothermia, because all we see of her is walking off into the dead of night in the middle of winter without a coat. And then there's just the same goings on as this father and son, who remain nameless the entire time, travel the road. They say the same big forest fires, same acts of cannibalism. They celebrate their small little victories of finding, maybe one good person or some food that they didn't have to kill or climb a tree to get. Some little victory in not being killed by those awful gangs. And then there's the book and the movie end the same way, pretty much. The father gets an infection and he dies, just as a family of good people take in the son and help him bury him. So that's The Road. And why I want to do such a disturbing and depressing book and movie so soon after Independence Day. Oh, here's one thing I forgot to mention that was watered out of the book into the movie was, how really, I'm just going to come out and say it, fucked up the cannibalism is. I mean, what, MPAA rating would it have in the theater if they kept in the scene where the boy happens upon an infant done up like a pig on a spit and barbecued? Doesn't get more messed up than that. Okay, now the method behind my madness here is The Road. Come on, this is what we have to look forward to. Yesterday was Independence Day. Do we want last 4th of July to really be our last 4th of July? I don't think so. But it will be if we don't, steel our nerves, grow a spine, and stop thinking that these career politicians actually care about us. And stop thinking that the money we trade for everything actually means something. I'm going to read to you a post from one of my favorite blogs I found on Facebook. It's called The Mind Unleashed, and the blog post is called 10 Things You're Not Supposed to Know. Alright, behold. Number 1, it is nearly impossible to pay off the national debt. This is because money is created out of debt. In a 1-to-1 increase in public debt, the national debt is $20 trillion. That means that the roughly 234 million U.S. Americans will have to pay approximately $62,000 each to pay it off. Now, this blog post is dated October 6, 2017. That figure has probably ticked up quite a bit since then. Anyway, ongoing. This includes babies, children, poor people, and homeless people. There are even those who claim it's mathematically impossible to pay off the debt. And almost every country is in debt to every other country. It's the height of insanity. It sure is. If every country is kind of evenly paced in debt, then why not stop giving a shit and just wash it? Number 2, There is no underlying thing backing money. It's all an illusion. All money is fiat money. A dollar bill is a dollar bill because everyone agrees it's a dollar bill. The dollar bill is not lawful money, but rather legal tender. Money used to be backed by a gold standard, which meant the government had $100 worth of gold in a vault from which they made a $100 bill that went out into the market. Though even gold only has value because we've all agreed since time immemorial that it's valuable. However, they moved away from gold years ago. Now we must take the government's word for it that the note is worth $100. The bill itself is just an IOU note, made from thin air, based on debt and laundered by the government. Even the debt issue discussed in the first bullet is based on nothing, and is nothing more than a financial concept financiers agree on. The debt isn't actually there, but since we all just go along with it, it affects us through inflation and devaluation, and the sky is falling knee-jerk reactions to money meaning something only because we give it meaning. Money is little more than a cartoon in the brain that we are addicted to watching. Number 3, how to live off the grid. You're not supposed to know how to live off the grid because then you can't be controlled by the government. The more self-sufficient you are, the less money the corporations can make off you. The more rainwater you catch, the less you need to pay the water companies. The more windmills you build and solar panels you erect, the less you need to pay the electric companies. The more composting toilets you install, the less you have to pay plumbing companies. The more gardening you do, the less you have to pay someone else for your food. In short, the more independent you become, the less codependent you will be on the state. And the state doesn't like that, because they like your money way more than they like your freedom. Case in point, all this bullshit about raising the minimum wage and extending unemployment benefits, and I could go on forever about how messed up this whole system is, and it's not to help us. It's so that they can shave as much as they want off the top through taxation. They can live like royalty, and when the shit hits the fan, they will take everything they have bled out of us and leave us with that. Thanks, but no thanks. Number 4, planned obsolescence. Speaking of money or making money off you, planned obsolescence is a way for companies to keep making money off you by capitalizing on your consumerist tendencies. Let's face it, we're a nation of consumers with Big Macs for brains and iPhones for hearts. We need our fix, and we need it fast, and we're willing to fill all the landfills in the world and then some to get it. Planned obsolescence, like washers and dryers have their own built-in deaths. You gotta buy another one whether you want to or not. Video game consoles, they stop being compatible with TVs and shit. It will not end. And the iPhone is brilliant invention, but it's also a huge pain in my ass and a pain in yours too, because they break so easily. And the battery starts to not hold a charge for as long as it did in the beginning. Planned obsolescence is designed into a product to encourage the consumer to buy the next upgrade. Everything from toasters to automobiles, microwaves to cell phones are prone to planned obsolescence by greedy companies that know you will come back for more no matter how many times your things fall apart. 5, civil asset forfeiture. As if police brutality, extortion, and overreach of power weren't enough, unscrupulous police officials have been manipulating the deeply flawed federal and state civil asset forfeiture laws that give them permission to seize, keep, or sell any property allegedly involved in a crime. The key word is allegedly, because most of the time property is taken without even being charged with a crime. That's crazy. Originally meant to be used on large-scale criminal organizations, it's now used almost entirely on individuals. Ruining people's lives over petty crimes, more and more police departments are using forfeiture to benefit their bottom line. It's less about fighting crime and more about profit. John Oliver did an excellent piece on the matter that gets right at the heart of the issue. Number 6, the U.S. imprisons more of its population than any other country and profits off it. Living in what is widely considered the land of the free, this one should come as a body blow to anybody who truly believes in freedom. Total prison population has grown by 500% over the last 30 years. The United States has less than 5% of the world's population, yet we have almost 20% of the world's total prison population, even though crime is at a historic low. The icing on this shit cake is that the deplorable fact that big corporations are making a killing off the prison system. Equal parts extortion and slavery. For-profit prisons do nothing in the way of rehabilitation and therapy, and everything in the way of profit and criminal relapse. Alright, number 7, if you didn't know this one already, come on, get your head out of the sand. Number 7, forced taxation is theft. When taxation is forced, one cannot say they live in a free country. When taxation is not optional, the country forcing the tax is not free. Bottom line, if one does not pay their taxes in such a country, they are threatened with violence or prison if they don't pay. That is point-blank extortion. And since it is being done by an authoritarian government, it is naked tyranny. I once got one of those tax bills. It was like for a freaking paltry amount, $300-something. And the threats were right there on the front page. We can take your car, your business, your house, everything in your bank account. It's evil. If no one feels like paying taxes, then they should feel free to pay. I misread that. If one feels like paying taxes, then they should feel free to pay. That's fair, because that's voluntary. But if the state is using its monopoly on violence to get money out of you, that's not fair, that is extortion. It really is that simple. If freedom is primary, then voluntarism is paramount. The use of state services built off taxes is an entirely different matter with entirely different solutions, and it's an irrelevant red herring to the issue at hand. Number 8, you're not allowed to be stateless, but you can be. Statelessness is an alien concept in our world, even though it can be extended to all living beings in principle and in theory. At its irreducible bedrock truth, it is exceptionally difficult to be sovereign and stateless. This is because the entire world is plagued with the disease of statism. It is so second-natured to our existence that we never question it. We might as well be fish questioning water, but we are not fish. We are human beings with the ability for deep logic, higher reasoning, and basic common sense. That is, unless we are being oppressed into blind servitude and myopic subordination, and we are unwilling to question things, and here we are. Similar to living off the grid, you're not supposed to know this one because then the corrupt nation-states of the world would have less control over you. And don't be fooled, it's all about control. Unfortunately, the cons outweigh the pros on becoming a stateless person, especially because we are social creatures and most of the other social creatures in our world are conditioned status. As Nietzsche famously said, state is the name of the coldest of all cold monsters. Coldly it lies, and this lie slips from its mouth. I, the state, am the people. Number 9, the police are not legally obligated to protect you. Most people falsely and ignorantly assume that it's the sworn duty of the police to protect and to serve. But it is actually the exception, not the rule. A cop protecting and serving is doing so in a humane capacity and not because she is obligated to do so. They just happen to be acting humanely while wearing a badge. The reality is that power tends to corrupt. This applies especially to police. Now, before I read on, let me just clarify. I'm not like I'm not an anarchist. I'm gonna slap the crap out of that cat if you don't cut it out. That scared me to death. That's a skeleton. Okay. I'm not an anarchist, I'm not Antifa, I'm not any of those fuck the police people. I'm all for, law enforcement. Stop it! Bad cat! I'll just hold it. So I'm not one of those people, but I'm reading from a blog, and this is some very serious stuff. So, going on. The solution is not more... Stop it! The solution is not more ill-trained, defense-minded police with too much power, but more well-trained, defense-minded police with just enough power. In short, a complete eradication of the thin blue line. And now, number 10, last one. We live, and I hope I pronounced this right, we live in an oligarchic plutocracy disguised as a democratic republic. In our world, money is power. Money concentrated in the hands of the few means power concentrated in the hands of a few. And since power tends to corrupt if it goes unchecked, people must be free to check it, lest tyranny prevail. But because of an overreaching militarized police force, the people are not free to check it. And here we are slipping into tyranny. If we live within a horizontal democracy, we would have a better chance at being free. No masters, no rulers, and hence no chance for power to become concentrated in the hands of a few. Easier said than done, sure, but nothing worth doing was ever easy. As it stands, it is impossible to live freely within an oligarchic plutocracy. The plutocrats will simply continue buying up power by creating oppressive laws and legal extortion rackets that keep the people without wealth and power in a permanent state of poverty and powerlessness. Add that to the use of lobbyists and fiat currency based on debt, and you have a nation of hoodwinked debt slaves under the delusion that they live in a free democratic republic. Now, I'm reading this, I'm talking about, people who are gunning for this, their turn in the hot seat to be the tyrant. I mean the ones, the real career politicians who say they care about us, but their district is a cesspool. And I'm also talking about two certain trillionaires out there, we all know who they are, who get their kicks making trouble and stirring the shit pot and keeping us all inimized. So that was 10 things you're not supposed to know from The Mind Unleashed. And that covers the road, which is what we have to look forward to if we don't get our act together. And happy 5th of July, and no one is probably watching this anyway, so underwear, farts, suppository.